Hello everyone. This noisy valve train got me started on tearing the top end of my 1966 Ford 289 engine down. In this Part 4 installment, I'm taking it as far as I wanted to go with it, but there's a twist in that plan. After this, it'll be time to start cleaning old parts and preparing new parts to be installed. Okay, let's get to work. If you haven't seen parts 1, 2, or 3 of this series, you might want to check them out. That'll make the beginning of this video make more sense. That just came out as smooth as can be. Really doesn't look bad at all. I'd say these were replaced at some point. Probably the same time these heads and push rods were replaced. They're not looking bad so far. Let's see, I'm going to keep them in order in this box here. Pull out real smooth. And the wear pattern on them so far looks good. Yep, actually beautiful. I'm starting to think these lifters aren't the problem. It could be that these rockers were never adjusted properly in the first place. Maybe that was the source of the noise, but I don't understand why then it was so loud at first and quieted down after it warmed up. Unless it was really that far out. These all look good to me. I would reuse them again if I wasn't replacing the cam. I have this screwdriver where the very tip of it is bent over in a 90-degree, and that allows me to hook into the lock ring groove inside there so I can pull the lifters out. So I want to do these in order. That one has a bunch of crud in it, but the wear pattern is fine. All those lifters look good. There's not excessive wear and there was no mushrooming on the end. It's possible they got some crud inside them that kept them from sealing properly. And maybe all they needed was to be disassembled and flushed out, reassembled and put back in. But I'm installing a brand new camshaft, so I'm going to be using brand new lifters that came with it. Perfect. So the teeth have a lot of wear on them, I would say, but none are broken. They're nylon teeth for sure. And the chain is sloppy. That's in perfectly good condition. Nothing wrong with that. Those are 7/16. Don't drop it into the oil pan. Uh-oh, what's this? The camshaft isn't pulling out. It seems to be hitting a hard stopping point. I actually pried it out a little bit. What I know now is there's an actual step worn into the cam bearings. The camshaft actually seems a little snug. At first I couldn't just pull it out. So I put the drive gear back on. I had to pry on it a little bit. There was just enough space to pull it out. I might have had to remove the grill work or something, but it just made it, even with the drive gear on it. So have you ever gotten that sinking feeling when you were working on a project like this? I've got that feeling big time right now. When I was pulling that camshaft out, I could actually grab the end of it and there was chuck in it. It would chuck up and down. That bearing is so loose. Actually, all of them are so loose. I could move it up and down. I'm guessing 10,000ths. So now let's look at this front bearing here and you can see what I mean. You can only see the front, but take a look. I might need to raise the camera to get a better angle. But right here, there's an edge on that bearing. You can feel, you can hear my fingernail catch on it when I run it across there. And if I run my finger around the top, it doesn't do that at all. The top is smooth and the bottom bearing has a ridge in it, kind of like the ridge at the top of a cylinder. I don't know if the camera can actually pick that up. I won't know until I look at it on the computer screen. But there's a ridge right there on the back edge of that. On the back edge of that bearing. And if you run your finger around, as I run my finger around, it's not up top. It's not even on the sides. It's just basically the bottom third. There, now I can even see it on this little camera screen. And that makes sense because the bottom of the bearing takes all the weight of the cam plus all the pressure from the valve springs pushing down on it. And it's got valve springs pushing down on both sides of it, so it's a lot of pressure. So I don't know how many miles are actually on this engine, but it's 60 years old. These could well be the original bearings, and it's time to replace them. When I was trying to pull the camshaft out the first time, it felt like it was hitting something solid that was blocking it. And I have a feeling it was one of those ridges on one of the internal bearings, one or more of them. And when I pried it, it managed to get up onto the high spot of the bearing where there's no ridge, on top of the ridge. And everything was snug and tight like it should be. So unfortunately I have a decision to make, and I actually don't have a choice, I don't think. I'm going to have to replace those cam bearings. And the only way to do that is to pull the engine out, disassemble it, so I can get into where those bearings are and work on them. And that's going to entail a lot more work than I was planning on here. I was hoping just to do this top end, but now it's turned into a total engine job. I have to pull this engine, disassemble the lower reciprocating assembly, replace the cam bearings, and do whatever else needs to be done to reassemble it. At a minimum, it's going to get a ring job. I hope it doesn't need to be bored out and new pistons and all that, but that remains to be seen. So I'm going to take you along with me on this adventure, and we'll all see where it goes. I think it's going to be a much bigger job than I ever intended. But I have, let's see, it's the third week in March now. I still have April and May to get it done before June. I want to be driving this car in June, I hope. So we'll see what happens.
I need to work on something else while I get organized for the bigger task at hand.
So I got these heads used off of eBay like more than 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, and they've been sitting on a shelf in the basement that whole time since then. These are 1969 351 Windsor heads, so they're pre-smog heads, and these are the desirable ones, or these were the desirable ones before all these high-performance aluminum heads came out. But they're good enough for me. These are they say 30269 on them, but they're from a 351, and these are C8, wrong, C90E heads. So these heads need a little bit of work. I've never really checked them out since I've got them. So I need to pull all these valve springs off, pull the valves and inspect them. And these old rubber valve seals, which are old now, they weren't old when they were put in, but they're 25 years old now, or more. Because I don't know how long they were sitting on the shelf before the seller got rid of them. But so I'm going to replace the seals while I'm at it, while I'm in here. So let's go ahead and I'll show you removing the valve springs and the valves from the head. And I'll show you a problem I found. I've already done 4 of them. I'll show you a problem I found with them. If the camera can see it. It might not see it, but I'll describe it. So to begin with, I need a valve compressor to compress these valves. And there's various different styles. There's these simple ones that you kind of bolt on to the stud there, the rocker stud, and pry up, and it pushes down on the spring. This would work better with the engine in the car because lifting up like that is just going to lift the head. Either that or I have to clamp it down to the edge of the bench. And then also, while you're holding this, it only gives you one free hand. I guess the other ones I have also do the same thing. But this isn't the one I'm using. Here's another one of the similar style. But this is for a big block Ford that has a rocker rail. So this would hook under the rail and you would push down on it and compress the spring. Obviously not using that here. Then I have this type from KD Tools. And these clamp on. And you crank it down like this. Make sure both sides are under the spring, under a coil. Go ahead and compress the spring as far as you need to. But see, I already forgot something I needed to do. So let me do this. So when you're working on valves, they can just drop right out, right? When they're loose, they can just drop right out. So in order to keep them up in there, I just use a little block of wood like that, and I'll just put some tape on it to hold it into place while I'm laying it down. Just hold it there in position. And now these two valves aren't going to be able to drop out. And that's important because as I'm compressing this spring, if the valve drops, I can't get the keeper out. And this isn't working. I'm going to need to push down more on it to get more space. There's the first one. There's the second one. There's a pair of keepers that lock the valve in. You can just lift the spring off like that. Carefully uncompress the spring. You want to hold those two sides there so they don't pop off the spring while you're doing that. And so these springs have this retainer that sits in the top, and then this other little piece that goes in there, and then the two keepers that wedge in the retainer. Let me pull the seal off of this one. I'm hanging on to the seals because I'm using them to kind of hold the valves in before I put the springs back on. So I picked up another style of spring compressor I've never used before. It actually threads onto the rocker stud. It's the right size threads. It's for 7/16 or 3/8 rocker studs. You just go ahead and thread this all the way on there. And it seems to work pretty well. Let's see, I'll go that far with it. Just put it on there like that, put this handle on, and push down. And you see it compresses the spring. But that little keeper, that little retainer cup there is stuck on the keeper, so I'm just going to give it a tap. Drop down out of the way. And there's the first keeper. I actually got the second one out with my fingers instead of a magnet. And that's that. And it works pretty nice. That spring there, that one there, 2 sets of keepers. Try to keep all the parts together that work together. And then remove the spring compressor. Remove that second valve seal. Now I'm going to tip this up. Oops, my magnet hung on to it. Remove this block. You can see that valve wants to drop out already. This one comes right out. That's the exhaust valve. And this one, it's hitting a little bit of a burr. So there's a burr on this valve stem. And I've got to knock it down a little bit before I can get the valve out. And I'm going to go get my other camera to see if I can get a close-up on that burr so you can actually see it. There it is right there.
It may not look like much, but the new brass valve guide liners are providing a pretty tight clearance for the valve stems. So if I tried to force the valve stem out through the valve guide, it would gouge the brass and cause a shortened liner lifespan and premature failure.
To safely remove that dinged valve stem, I hit that burr with some fine emery cloth in just that spot. Some flyby ducts there. I'm just blowing those valve guides out in case there's something in there.
Next time I'll work on taking the valves from looking like the one on the left to looking like the one on the right. A little light polishing will improve the airflow through the heads, and with any luck there'll be a corresponding increase in horsepower.
Thank you for watching. Please take a moment to like and subscribe.